like a home's broken and going to breakfast, so it's at least partly Jess's fault. I was with Jess and then I would go on social media and I'm like, oh well, Jess's media for so I did social media and just like, don't throw me into this. Well, I can give you the tips. I can give you the tips. I was just say you were and he was just like, can't take any sessions about recycling. And I'm like, why do you guys have that? I'm just
well, that's how relationships work. They're healthy and perfect when there's the kind of with the girls and the guys. Yeah. Otherwise, it's like such toxic relationship because the guy takes advantage of that. Well, us girls, we're reasonable, so we don't take advantage of it. It's just a fact.
Beyond when they met each other in our film class.
So fun. Data.
No. Yeah. What do they do?
I'm so happy. You had a moment of, you had a moment of, you know, trying to understand what the fuck was going on, but finally, you did it.
I just saw the message about Wednesday.
Oh, do you know what time? Sorry.
I have so many things.
Yeah, why do you go back and like so
We went to school. You get to wander around the
Is that your voice?
what are you up for?
well, there's this one.
Maybe you can do like
Take a big deep breath in, you can take it no hold, I can take a breath in everyone.
Ice cream shops and leave them on the table with all the bar managers. Have a look at me. I hate you, piece of shit.
Oh my god, that's so funny that he just, so much. I can't imagine Joe being like, he's nice, but I don't know if he's not like be empathic. He's funny. He's a funny character, that's for sure. I think later, I think he might be with her.
Money. Yeah. And then did you want to go there? Yeah, I'm just going to record it. Just going to record so much of those.
Oh, my friend's Jeff.
No!
Very cool. To bring chocolate.
No! That's so sad. I was just eating things almost out on the ground. That's so sad. Ah! Fuck. Corner of the thing went in my eye.
You can sell it and have it now.
Okay, so I guess I need to congratulate everyone to begin with. Right. I'm very jaded doing this job for any length of time. And I don't see a future for me or the human race at this point. But you can find small nuggets of joy in weird places. And actually marking your assignments over Easter brought my mundane and sad existence a tiny bit of little joy. There were some really, really good projects handed in, and overall, I think you guys are the best class that's ever done this module. So far, you have got one more assignment to do then. If you fuck that up, then you won't be, but at this point, I'm quite confident in that statement. I thought everything was done really well. Nobody, like if you go through like project examples from last year, you can see a couple of people who really fucked up. Nobody did that, which is always pleasing. So well done all of you. I was really pleased. It can be such, I mean, I don't want to go on and on, but marking is one of the most fundamentally depressing things that you ever have to do as an educator, because you spend hours and hours preparing all this stuff, and then you have things come back to you which have completely misinterpreted everything that you've said previously. That is a familiar experience. But that didn't happen, which is great. However, thank you to all of you who have done the module feedback, by the way. One person made a really remarkable comment in the module feedback, and it was this. The lectures had nothing to do with the assignments. That person's probably going to fail, and fail in such a spectacular way that it will have to be advertised in some kind of online journal, because believe me, the lectures do have something to do with the assignments, especially the assignment that you are due to submit when?
On the 4th of May. Next Thursday.
Next Thursday, the 4th of May. At what time? 2 o'clock, yeah. Now, you should be aware of this by now, I hope. Awareness number 1, Turnitin isn't a very good system. Awareness number 2, everyone submits in May. Right? Every module in this university, hundreds and hundreds of modules, they will all be submitting stuff in May. There are fairly good odds that on Thursday, Turnitin is going to be having some kind of meltdown. Please, do not leave it until 1 minute to 2 to submit. Okay? Try and do it earlier than that if possible. Try not to finish with like 3 minutes to go. Some advice. Does anyone have any questions about that assignment before I go any further today? No? You all confident? Happy? There will probably be some time at the end today if anyone does want to ask any questions. So, onwards and upwards. And I'll look really quickly at what the future of social media might be today, and also dwell on some failures of social media, because we should always revel in the failure of others. That is one of the most important human traits that you can have. When somebody else falls over, you must point and laugh. That makes you feel better about yourself. If you've learned nothing over the past couple of months, you've learned that. We're going to review the module very quickly, and then I'm going to go on to, I guess, what the important aspect of this lecture is, which is the 10 reasons to delete your social media accounts right now. And as I told some people on Monday, this entire module has been structured and written and delivered with one thing in mind. That is to make you realise that social media is bad for you. If you have understood that, then you have done well no matter what the grade is that you receive at the end of it. But let's hope you get as good a grade as possible. Let's start with a history lesson. Does anyone know who that guy is? He was one of the most important people in the world at a time when you were all alive. Any clue? No? You may not have known this guy, but he was extremely important to millions and millions of people. That, my friends, is Tom. Does anyone know who this guy is now? No? Brilliant. Anyone ever heard of a social media site called MySpace? Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. Who can tell me something about MySpace?
I don't think it exists anymore.
That's incorrect.
It still
Does exist.
people still use it?
People still use it.
Oh my god.
Still around. Anyone know anything else? Em? The Facebook before Facebook. It's a fairly good description. MySpace was a major social network that had its peak between the years of 2004 and 2007. In 2007, MySpace was purchased for a record amount at the time for a digital media company by another company called News Corp. Who could tell me anything about News Corp?
Rupert Murdoch.
Rupert Murdoch is the owner of News Corp. News Corp is the umbrella company that owns companies like Fox, like a number of newspapers in the United Kingdom, for example. News International is part of News Corp. So News Corp purchased MySpace for a record amount in 2007. Tom was the founder of MySpace. And when you had a MySpace account, you would have friends on MySpace. And the first friend you had was Tom. So everyone who had a MySpace account was friends with Tom. And what you could do on your MySpace page was have like your top 8 friends, and immediately Tom would be one of your top 8 friends as well. So everyone in the world was friends with Tom. That's why that image of Tom became, between 2004 and 2007, one of the most important social media images of all time. He was everywhere. Everyone was connected to Tom. Tom was the most connected guy in the world. Tom sucks. Everyone got rid of Tom from their top 8 friends as soon as they had 8 people to connect with. But Tom is kind of a social media legend. Now, does anyone know what happened to MySpace?
Facebook like ran over MySpace, I think.
How did it do that? You are not wrong. That is a very nice way of putting it, actually. The juggernaut behemoth Facebook came and basically ran over MySpace. But does anyone know why it failed? That is true. So what happened to it?
Did it set up a paywall or something? And Facebook was free?
No, it didn't. It's a fair attempt at an answer that, but that's not what happened.
Is it because it was like a good idea, close to becoming something that the market wants, but it never really got there, and then Facebook really adjusted to what MySpace, so build off of MySpace basically, and just made it better.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Facebook builds off MySpace, right?
Yeah.
It takes all the important things that MySpace had. So what did MySpace have? Well, the ability to connect with other people, the ability to construct a profile of your interests and so on, and an ability to make posts not just on your own profile but on other people's profiles. So in 2007, when Facebook came along, you could do all of those things on Facebook too. So, great. So you had 2 competing services where you could basically do the same things. So why did MySpace fail and Facebook take over then?
Facebook used the data of the users and MySpace wasn't doing that.
1, Facebook started to monetize information in a way that made it very attractive to advertisers in a way that MySpace wasn't. So 1.
That let them scale, and then to many institutions, universities, and the network expanded faster than MySpace?
Arguable. If MySpace had kept on expanding numbers, it would have kept pace probably. So, but there is a good point in there about how Facebook became viral in that way. Jake.
Did you say before that MySpace kept crashed and they couldn't hold the number?
MySpace technically kept, there were problems with MySpace technically, which meant that a lot of it kept crashing all the time. And this is all to do with the user experience and user interface. Now, a MySpace page, if I went back and showed you like my own MySpace page, lots of people are like me, I guess, in that you get something and then you just want to break it. So MySpace allowed its users to adjust what its page looked like. Okay, so when you logged onto MySpace and you had your user page, you could make it look any way you liked. Most people would put an image there and it would tile it, or they would have a stretched image of something behind. But not me. Oh no. I would write HTML code to have like hypnotic, sick-inducing animations as my MySpace page to piss people off. When people clicked a link on MySpace page, on my own MySpace, I would put in lines of code so when they clicked that link, it would play a horrible sound that would make you go, ah, because I thought that's funny. So I could troll people using my own MySpace page, but the problem with that was that anyone who went onto my profile would have to sit there about 2 minutes for the damn thing to load. Because I had made it effectively unoperational by dumping all this HTML in it. I am not the only person who did this. Many, many millions of people started messing around with the code of MySpace and making their sites basically unusable. MySpace had a bad user interface, basically. The user experience of MySpace was quite challenging because people would make it that way. You would go onto people's accounts and instantly, like, you know, some piece of crap song would start playing and you're like, get away, get away, get away, and all this sort of stuff. That doesn't happen with Facebook. Facebook got rid of customizable profiles. They basically made your profile customizable to a degree. To a very small degree. You could have your own image. You could have some interests. You could have this, that, and the other. But the actual user interface remained the same and consistent throughout. What they noted was that people really liked socializing on MySpace. They didn't like the crap that came with it because of people like me. So they got rid of it. And therefore, everyone was like, oh, Facebook does everything that MySpace does, only it does it better. This is a nicer user experience. We're all going to go to MySpace, to Facebook. So the traffic numbers on MySpace immediately start to drop. People start closing their accounts. Because why would you have two things to do the same thing? You just need one, right? Everyone's already gone over to this other thing. We're just going to use this. By 2008, MySpace's numbers had absolutely collapsed. By 2010, it was shut. Gone. Now, it is back and it has been restored and it's been around actually for 10 years now. But it's never been that thing again. So all of these sites here that I've got up here have done the same thing, basically. Friends Reunited would have been in the UK the first major traction social networking site. Friends Reunited is possibly one of the most tragic things that I've ever seen in my life. Does anyone know anything about this? Okay. So in about 2002, 2003, Friends Reunited launches. What you can do is set up a profile and then list the schools and universities you've been to. So you put your primary school and your secondary school and your college and your university. And then your little profile with an update on what you're doing with your life would appear on that little site with the years that you were in attendance at that place. So all those pricks that you were at school with that you never wanted to see again, you could see, like, you know, this jerk off that I went to school with is now a policeman. Well, there's a big shock. You know, fuck you. And etc., etc. Friends Reunited was the worst. But the idea comes from there, right? You set up a profile with a bit of history and you start connecting to people that you know or once knew, and you start conversations with them. Friendster took that a bit further and came up with the idea of profile pages where you could build your own profile, show your connections. Bebo took that further again. Did anyone ever hear of Bebo? I see some mods. That's interesting. Bebo aimed itself specifically at teenagers. So it had the idea of having an interface which was good for teenage users. MySpace went huge. Goala brought in the ideas that you could actually bring location into this, and you could advertise your location to other people and tell people where you are. MSN Messenger. Damn. Nobody knows what I'm talking about MSN Messenger, do you? What? How? Your sister, okay. How much older is your sister? Perfect, yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So when I was a secondary school teacher in the mid-2000s, the first academic thing I ever did as a secondary school teacher when I was doing a master's degree was look at MSN Messenger, because when it came, about 2006, something like that, all of a sudden none of my pupils were doing any homework. I was like, I mean, I already hated them, and now I hated them a lot more. And everyone had the same excuse, and it was MSN Messenger. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? So I got myself an MSN Messenger account, found some people that I knew on it, and then started spending every fucking night on MSN Messenger. Think WhatsApp with a connection to every point of the internet. So like you would just all of a sudden get bombarded with people sending you links, sending you YouTube stuff, etc., etc. Like a crossover between Facebook and WhatsApp, if you like. And it was, oh my god, it was like crack cocaine. It was horrendous. And I had an appreciation then of why none of my people, well, there were two reasons. One, they were all like that. And two, they were all sitting all day doing this. I got it. Okay? MSN Messenger doesn't exist anymore. Can anyone tell me why? Well, it's a really simple story which keeps on repeating here. Some very enterprising chaps from some other companies like Facebook took the idea and stole it and made it into something bigger, and then the other thing just fell apart because everyone stopped using it. It's really, really easy, the history of social media. All these things that failed basically failed because they got robbed by the other companies. There is no innovation, there is just theft. Google Plus.
Oh, I remember. Wasn't there a few years when that was, you had to have Google Plus to comment on YouTube videos?
You did, yeah. Google's attempt at making a social network competitor to Facebook. And they did something really sneaky with it, which meant you had to have an account if you wanted to do anything on YouTube with it as well. What they forgot was that, okay, you can do that. So, like, there were billions of people who had Google Plus accounts, and nobody used Google Plus. I don't know one person who ever even made a profile picture for Google Plus. I certainly didn't. I don't know anyone who ever used it. I had an account on it for years. I never had one message. I didn't have one connection. I didn't look for any connections on it. It was a desert. It looked and behaved exactly the same as Facebook. It was a like carbon copy of it. What did Google get wrong? Well, they forgot that you need users for something to work. They forgot that you needed anything. Now, the history of social media, therefore, is the history of a series of failures. I put it to you. What do you think is the next big social media site that you might use which is going to fail?
TikTok,
Why do you think that, Alice?
because there's a lot of struggles right now with kind of the whole problem of the data that they're using, and the problem between basically China and the US, and the fact that the US is saying, we want to know exactly what you're doing with the data, how much data you have, and it's like, if you don't reveal this, then we're going to ban TikTok.
Yeah.
Basically.
And individual states in the US have now started banning
Yeah.
the use of TikTok. I think Iowa was the first one to strike it down a couple of weeks ago. I think others are going to follow. I would agree with that assessment. I think the next one to go is definitely going to be TikTok. Although I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think it's going to get bought and folded into something else. Probably Facebook are going to buy it. I would think. I think they're kind of prime position for me. The next site that's going to disappear completely is going to be BeReal. Is any BeReal users? Few? In the last couple of months, BeReal's traffic has gone down in hundreds of percent. It's got nothing left. It'll be gone within 6 months, unfortunately.
In like the last meetings, like in the future, do you think at one time you can add another BeReals in the day? So
Yeah.
you have multiple wishes.
They're just trying desperately now to
Point
keep
of it.
the few people who are left using it to try and create more content, but it's not going to work. It's already done. You can put the cross up. You're just waiting for the corpse to arrive now. It's gone.
What is the name of the platform that Andrew uses that somebody else use? There is some platform you mentioned. With an S, I don't know what's the
I don't know. There are others that might go in time, but the two big ones would be, BeReal's going to disappear by the end of the year. TikTok, it might not be this year, but by the time I'm doing lectures next year, I suspect TikTok will have been bought by an American company, almost certainly. Which kind of blows for TikTok, but what are you going to do? I was going to do a little video about, does anyone actually remember Vine? Yeah? Okay. So Vine was a short video service connected to the Twitter platform. Why did Vine... I loved Vine. I never used to make any, but I used to see Vines all the time and I thought they were brilliant. Why did Vine go?
It's kind of limited, wasn't it? It was 7 seconds maximum.
7 seconds maximum.
Was there no advertisement?
There was no advertising with it. So again, we got the money thing, limitations of the user experience. And funnily enough, Instagram and Snapchat brought out mini video features right at the same time as Vine was getting big and stole all that market immediately. All the failures in social media come from companies being able to do things better or more efficiently. So better means better user interface. More efficiently means the use of data in a more efficient manner to create revenue. Always. I'm going to go back slightly on what I've just said. There is another big company which I think is going to go. Twitter is going to disappear. Because it is being so badly managed at the moment that users are hemorrhaging for it. We already know that Facebook has a replacement service ready to roll out. It has been built for years. All they've been waiting for is for people to leave Twitter. It will come out sometime in the next year as well. If Elon Musk continues to be Elon Musk, Twitter is completely doomed, unfortunately. I don't see how Elon Musk is going to be anyone else, because he is such a monumental prick that I don't think he can change. So I think it's going to go under as well. But it'll probably, what will happen is Facebook will buy it really, really cheaply. He paid 44 billion for it. I bet they pay like less than 10% for that. Steal the copyright of it. So, what you see over time is efficiency in terms of creating money and revenue leads to scale. And if you cannot operate at a giant scale, you cannot operate in the social media space. We're talking about vast companies who have huge numbers of users. Interesting one there in 2009 about MySpace. In 2009, stories, just after sort of Facebook had taken over in terms of numbers, stories started coming out in the press, not in the Murdoch press, who had obviously just bought this company, but in other press, that MySpace was a haven for paedophiles. That there were thousands and thousands of paedophiles on MySpace who were only there to collect pictures of young people. MySpace went out and removed 90,000 profiles, which they said were paedophiles profiles. They weren't. They just kind of picked 90,000 profiles at random and got rid of them. There's no evidence to suggest this was true, right? But it's like, oh my god, everyone says there's loads of pedos on it. Let's like find every 40-year-old man on this site and get rid of his account because they're pedos, right? It's only those guys are pedos. Absolutely crazy. By 2011, it had gone. This is a MySpace versus Facebook sort of infographic. And what it tells you is the direction of how things happen over time on social media. Company starts, gains traction, until it reaches a point where it becomes competition. Companies like Facebook, Twitter to an extent, they look at what happens in the social media space and then act when something they think becomes a competitor to them. And when they feel that that point has been reached, just like Instagram in 2012, for example, they buy it. Or they shut it down. There are two ways to deal with this according to this model. So a company like GoWalla, for example, which was bought in 2011, which none of you will have ever heard of. Facebook looked at it, oh my god, this has got rocketing numbers. We're going to buy it, and then literally they shut it down the next day. Like they didn't. It was like, well, we don't want it. We're just going to buy it, and then we're going to shut it off. And they've done that with hundreds and hundreds of services over the years. Buy it cheap and shut it down. But if something has escaped notice and it's got a bit bigger, they will buy it out. Problem with TikTok is it's very difficult to buy a Chinese company. Very, very hard for an American company to actually buy a company based in China, because the ownership of that Chinese company is nearly always associated at a small scale with the Chinese state, who are never that keen on selling to American interests. So that has been an issue with that. Snapchat has been attempted to be bought by Facebook so many times, it's not funny. Billions and billions and billions of dollars have been offered for that, and Snapchat have always turned them down. So I've kind of got respect for Snapchat in that way. They were just like, we're not going to do it. Unfortunately, at some point, Snapchat ends and closes, but I guess the guys who built it and run it have made enough money over the years that they don't have to worry now. The history that has not yet been written of social media is, at some point, something is going to come along and do this to Facebook. It is inevitable. There is no more inevitable thing that will ever happen. But what Facebook have been able to do is expand the life cycle in a ridiculous way. They keep on going, they keep on making money. Some point something's going to come along and beat it, but because that's inevitable. No company stays big and huge and on top forever. That's the history of media companies in one go. But I can't tell you when it's going to happen. I thought it would happen about 5 years ago. It didn't. I think the pandemic might happen for that. But now, what we can also think about in terms of the future is how social media is going to be used. You should now all be aware that what does social media as an ecostructure mean? It means like millions and billions of people around the world all giving information to services which is mined for data. When you mine data on that kind of scale, you should be able to make predictions about behaviour. And indeed, that is something that social media companies do. Trends, for example, are identified through data profiling, and then they are pushed by companies. So trends across all sorts of different things are identified in that way. Google tried to do this in 2008 with its data around illnesses. So in 2008, Google, sitting on this massive trove of information that it gets from users, including social media users through the YouTube platform, decided, well, we can use this data to try and map what's going to happen in a flu epidemic. Now, when I use the word epidemic here, everyone's ears should go, ooh. How interesting. We had one of those about 3 years ago. It was pretty big. Do you all remember? Yeah? Cool. It was good times. 12 hours a day playing video games. I liked it. Now, predicting outbreaks of the influenza virus based on data. If this worked, do you think that would be valuable for us as a society? Do you see any possible things like, ooh, that could really help? Do you think it works? No, it don't work. So, Google's flu trends were massively inaccurate. It constantly overestimated what was going to happen, and over one interval, it predicted like double the number of people would get a particular strain of flu. Basically, Google was predicting that COVID-19 was going to happen with normal strands of the flu 10 years ago. Now, why do you think it's out? Why is social media data not accurate for doing things like this? Think about your own experiences being social media users during the pandemic. What did everyone talk about?
They talked about COVID.
They talked about COVID. And
not everyone talking about it had it, or it was just searching for it.
Absolutely. Not everyone who talks about a topic has it. Okay? Not everyone who is worried about something is actually affected by that thing. This is a major problem that we have with using social media to understand trends of things. Back in February last year, 1.7 billion mentions of the word Ukraine in 1 week on TikTok. Mentions. Now my searches, mentions only. So, does that mean everyone was really, really, really concerned about the situation in Ukraine? No, it doesn't. You can't extrapolate what is happening just from social media coverage of it. Because you look a couple of weeks down the line, well, the war in Ukraine had intensified, but actual amount of traffic about using the word Ukraine had actually decreased. Did that mean people stopped caring about it? It also cannot be extrapolated if that's the case. What social media is deeply limited at doing is identifying what is actually happening in the world, because these are closed ecosystems. A lot of people making a lot of noise about a particular topic at one point in time does not mean that that is the actual state of things. We have amplification of certain stuff. We have bots that do a lot of work on social media that mention a lot of things. The point I'm making here is people who founded social media companies are what we would call a technocratic elite. And many of them think that the world's, including Mark Zuckerberg, think that most of the world's problems can be solved if we analyse what goes on their platforms. Because they've got enough data to understand the problems and therefore come to the answers of what those problems are. They're wrong. Social media can help us understand what's going on in society, but it can only be a partial answer to that question. It is limited in how far it can take us down that road. Anything like this also exploits the fundamental lack of privacy that we all now have, because we are social media users. But it also shows too much faith in the power of algorithmic governance, which we should not have. Again, a takeaway from this module is there is something called algorithmic governance out there. You will remember many, many months ago now. Actually, did I do this with you guys? Or am I confusing you with the first years? Let's explain to you how you came to Swansea University.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Algorithmic governance played a part in that decision you made. For some, it would be a large part. For some, it might be a small part. I can see your skepticism written across your face, Kate. But it plays a part. but it is not the whole answer to the question. If you chose Swansea University just by what you were pushed algorithmically in terms of content on social media platforms and other kinds of content providers, then you're a moron. And you deserve everything you get. So, but you will have other reasons for making that informed decision as well, I hope. Apologies if I've just described anyone as a moron, but you are. Right? But you can't abstract humanity out of decision making that much, which is what social media does. So, what have we actually done in the last 10 weeks? More than that, because we've had vacation in the middle. Participatory culture. One of the key ways of framing how social media works. Participatory culture is a debatable concept. Simply because your participation is decided upon in ways in which you have no control. You have no participation in the running of these platforms, and everything that you do on these platforms is extracted for value. That is not fair participation. That is actually free labour. The social has been remediated. Social processes which existed in the past have been transformed into digital processes, and processes which exist on digital platforms, like online dating, for example. Jane and Emily, who both did outstanding work on the laptop. New forms of expression of the self are possible. To not go negative, but there are ways in which we can express ourselves now which are novel and interesting and allow us to connect to others in ways which were not possible in the past. Privacy has been altered. It is tempting to say that privacy has gone. That's not true. The reason why it's not true is this. Sometimes people want to frame privacy as like a technological construct. There is no person working for Instagram who is looking at you. That doesn't exist. If you're using Twitter, there isn't some guy sitting in the Twitter offices who's looking at your profile. Nobody does that. Privacy, as we understand it, is a human construct. We are in the public eye, and then we're in the private domain, where we control who sees us, for example. What is altered here is that that private domain now has been intruded upon by data processes and data collection. There is no person watching you. Algorithmic governance doesn't work on the basis that somebody is watching you, but you are always being subjected to data collection in particular ways. And you might think, well, yeah, but Leighton, I don't, because when I'm on my own, I don't use social media. That is an absolutely irrelevant point, because this little device in my pocket produces over 500 pages of data on me every day, even when I'm not using it. And you said it could, because you ticked yes on the terms and conditions. And you ticked yes on the terms and conditions of every app on this as well, which also produces data on you, etc., etc. You allowed it to happen. But if you don't allow it to happen, then you can't function in the contemporary world. So privacy has been altered. Privacy still exists, but you actually have to make it exist now. Whereas privacy, if you like, was a right of people before the digital era, now you actually have to make adjustments to your life in order to be private. You have to try and be off the grid at certain points. That's incredibly hard to do. But it is not right to think privacy is gone, because there is no creepy guy at Facebook looking at you. It's tempting sometimes to think that there is. You're not that special, I'm afraid. Alternatives to the social media companies are really, really difficult to even envisage. These companies are huge, with massive revenue streams. As I showed not so long ago in this lecture, some companies come and go. But we now have consolidation in some major companies, and alternatives to those are very difficult to envisage. And when people do launch alternatives to them, as I covered in the lecture a few weeks ago, they fail. They go under. They go under quite simply for two reasons. One, if you can't get enough users, you don't get enough traffic. And reason number two, that traffic becomes revenue. And if you can't get revenue, you can't compete. One of the most important points, emotions have become subject to the logic of social media. I had a very emotional thing last night. Someone very important in my life died, and I found out via social media. Does anyone know who I'm referring to? Who said it? Jerry Springer. Do you know who I mean by Jerry Springer? Do you all know who I'm talking about? Jerry Springer is a fucking legend. Jerry Springer is the high priest of trash TV. If you have never seen the Jerry Springer show, you need to get on TikTok right now, not like this instant, in a few minutes' time when we have a break, and watch some Springer. Springer was the first man to introduce, sexual triangles between dwarves and amputees and circus performers on television. This was huge. Jerry Springer makes Jeremy Kyle look like an amateur. Jerry Springer is a god amongst men. Jerry Springer is a cultural sodomite of the highest order and exposes how worthless culture really is. And he passed away with cancer yesterday, unfortunately. I was like, oh no. Here I am enjoying my Thursday evening, hilariously watching Everton getting battered by Newcastle. And Jerry Springer's died. Oh, emotional trough. And about half an hour later, I saw something else on Twitter which made me smile. I was like, oh, I'm back up again. And in fact, my emotional logic is completely dictated by what I see. And as I went through in lecture 4, the pitch of social media in terms of emotional logic is low. Keep people emotionally low. That means that the boosts that they get are easier to achieve, and you will get people to chase them more frequently if you are constantly in a low state. So social media, as Gert Loving says, is sad by design. You design it to keep people in a negative emotional state so that when they do have positive effect, it has a major impact. The future of media itself, I put VR there, but what I should really put is extended reality. Extended reality is going to intensify this situation. It is no surprise that the major companies involved in augmented reality, virtual reality, and the overall extended reality milieu are social media companies. They recognise that if you can control the actual environment people exist in, either by creating an entirely computer-generated one or augmenting the current one with digital information, you can intensify all that stuff I've just talked about and make it more efficient. I fear for the near future. And protest against things is possible. Protest against politics, protest in society is possible, but now only within this system. If you're not in this, you're invisible. There is no protest without being social. Even if you want to protest against social media, you've got to do it from within social media, defeating the object of what you're trying to do in the first place. Everything has to go through this. And because social media companies so closely and algorithmically control content, your protest, if it does not meet with their corporate aims, will not have any traction. Sucks to be part of this. Okay. And we don't lunch, maybe I don't know, a bunch of other stuff as well. And I hope you had a lot of fun. Let's take a 10-minute break. And then I'll tell you why my favourite academic thinks this sucks.
The balls in my head. It's fun. I just want the points. I just want to look at it and see like 100 points. I don't care if I get minus 24. I just want to look at points. Well, honestly, think about it. When you don't touch it, you get a ball. And you do touch it, you get 100. You're still profiting.
Also, you can.
So you got to take the mission.
Share it.
I'm not.
That's 62.
That's so mean.
I know how I'm so good.
You got a huge bag. Fucking massive. Fucking massive.
I know.
I overtook James, but I just minus 20.
Lying.
But I feel like I can always take it.
Not the same one for you actually, we've got it again. Oh, I've seen Paul in play. I died. See, there's truth. And like, there's a lie. And you're over there somewhere now. Like, no way you've had them quiz for 24 hours.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Lies and you're making your taxes. That's all I'm gonna say. Health and safety risk on you. I try not to kill myself now. Is that actually giving you power? Is this going to be long? It's not going to be long enough to stretch your front, is it?
Just go sit right there and like,
Yeah. Indian style. Oh, just leave it 10 minutes of gibberish.
Yeah, these are the last two things. After that, they didn't do anything else. I remember that's the last thing I saw from them, and then they went MIA. They've got no followers.
You won't read it. What's that?
No, I was just trying to understand. Is like extended reality and AI, like AI is within extended reality, or they're two different things?
Two different things, but AI will exist independently of extended reality. Extended reality won't exist without AI. So best way to put that is extended reality will be contingent on AI, but it's not certainly not a necessary application.
Isako, great.
Stick it on eBay.
And also, this week, well, in the next week, they're going to doubles. So I'm going to
Anyone else
do
good
another
at
two next week. Well,
You went to discrimination. Great.
when's the doubles?
It's the cricket thing, it's like that. You survive. I've been lying in that bar many times.
Yeah, we went shopping, but I think like I didn't know when that thing was. Could we only do the garden once or something?
But then also, my problem now is I know
I know, that's why I thought it's fine to do this stage when you can win one.
no, it's always make some changes, but not big.
When we showed the half time,
Every time I look, something down.
Yeah, but it's a pretty low up, you try again that
Oh, yeah. I have no idea how to do it. I don't know if
I think